Hello everyone, my name is Simi Fasanu, Managing Partner at BFA and Co-Legal. With me is Favour Kalu-Whyte. Favour is an associate in our technology and startup departments, where she advises clients and individuals from getting their companies, raising money, corporate governance, and everything in between. So today, we're starting a new video series where we're going to try to break down what seem like complex legal issues to the simplest language possible. So Favour, today let's try a scenario-based approach whereby I'm an actor, I'm a founder. I work in a bank and I want to start with an app where I feel like as though current banking system, there are lots of people that are unhappy with what's going on, so I want to basically get a bank beyond bank. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm going to come to you as a founder, as in one to be founder, ask you questions here and there, and you break it down to me so that I and our viewers can understand what it means, what it takes to start up a technology firm in Nigeria. Okay, so I've said already, a new idea to open a mobile app banking system. What do you advise are the first steps I should take towards doing that?
Okay. First of all, I'll ask if you signed a non-conversion agreement, right? So that you do this something with them in your bank account, right? To make sure that your former employer or your
I'm still there.
Oh, you're still there.
So usually, right, what we advise is, you have this brilliant idea, right? You have this brilliant product. But then as much as you're building a product, you're also building a business, right? And as much as you want to build a business, you want to make sure that your house is in order, right? And how do you get your house in order, right? First of all, you're incorporating your company. You're incorporating your company, and then you're putting the necessary structure in place, right? Now, I even have to ask, are you the only founder, or you have like additional founders?
I think I have other friends that want to join me. I have other founders.
So you see, friends. Right, and then you're banking on the trust that they're your friends and that everything will go on right. Now that should not be. So, I mean, first of all, you want to have like a founder's agreement. Like that's like the basis of whatever it is you're doing. Remember, you're running a business. So you want to have an agreement with whomever you're running this business with, right? To make sure everybody's right is like clearly detailed out, right? And then you also want to make sure that when you now incorporate the company, you have a shareholders agreement, right? And that's like one of the so many things you want to do. Your shareholders agreement, and then when you incorporate your company, it has like the object of everything you want to do. Remember, we're structuring the business, right? And then, I mean, in the back end, you're building your product, but on the other hand, you're structuring your business, you're structuring your company, right? We have the shareholders agreement that has everybody's shares. Now, shares, roughly speaking, are like my ownership stake in that company translated into shares. Basically, my share, literally, right?
Business.
Yeah, exactly. So you and your trusted friends have everything properly like stated out in the document, right? We're incorporating your company on our own hand, right? You said fintech.
Yes.
Now, fintech is all encompassing, right?
Well, let me just, so you're saying that I first need to have a founders agreement and then a shareholders agreement.
Yes.
So the very first agreement between my friends and I is a founders agreement.
Exactly.
And then what is in that agreement?
So that agreement, first of all, will even have the name of the proposed company, right? So all of you must have already agreed on the name you want to name the company.
Yes.
All of you would have agreed on your shares, right? And again, you know how 3 people can come together to incorporate a company or to start something wonderful, and 1 year into it, I'm out. And then just because 1 year into it, I'm out, I still have as much shares that I would have had if I had stayed throughout the whole process, right? The finance agreement is going to cover for that. So it's going to say something like, so there's something called vesting, equity vesting, meaning I will not automatically, yes, on paper, I have 50 shares, right? But my shares will only become mine for as long as I keep staying in that company. So every year, 15 will vest in me. Of 15 of the 50, yeah. The next year, the remaining 15, so something like that. That way, you make sure that everybody's interests are protected. If I didn't stay up until the 3 years, right, I come in and then I leave in the first year, and your remaining friends, right, are working to like build the product, right? It would be unfair for me to come after the 3rd year and say, oh, hey, what's up? I have shares, you understand? So things like that will be covered into, right? everybody's role will be detailed in that agreement.
Okay.
I'm coming in as a chief legal officer, you're coming in as a chief technology officer, somebody is basically CEO or chief marketing officer,
I'm
whattever.
CEO.
Oh,
I'm
you remember
CEO.
CEO, yes.
I'm CEO.
So everybody's role is clearly stated there. The responsibilities are clearly stated there. So that's like why I said it's the foundation of anything that you're going to do, right? We've agreed, we put it to paper, now let's go and incorporate our company, right? Now, the finance agreement will now basically translate into a shareholders agreement.
Okay.
Right. So whilst we have everybody's roles and responsibilities, by the time we now register this company, right, we are now shareholders.
Okay, so first is the founders agreement.
Yes.
And then we have that. Then we go to the I'm guessing the CSE. I've heard of the CSE.
Okay.
But we'll get into that. But so we now incorporate the company, and then it's the shareholders agreement.
Yes.
Which is that the process?
Okay. So to incorporate your company, right,
Okay.
there are a bunch of things that you need to do. So just like you said, you're incorporating a fintech, right? Again, it's all encompassing. What exactly are you doing, right? So when you now come to us and then you tell us, oh, okay, you know what? I want people to be able to save on my platform, and I also want them to be able to borrow money, right? We now translate that into objects of your company.
Okay.
Now, when we translate that into objects, so your objects will be in your memorandum and articles of association. Long story, right?
Yeah.
We translate that and then we register your company for you with the Corporate Affairs Commission, right? So when we now do that, you have your company, you have the founders agreement, and now you now have a shareholders agreement between you and your co-founders.
Okay.
Offer, as you like to call it.
Yeah.
Right. So now, once we've done that, we now go into the next stage. You had said fintech. We had said, okay, what exactly are you doing? And then you say, oh, I want people to borrow money, and I want people to save money. Now that's an industry specific kind of financial technology, and whatever licenses, which brings us to the next stage, regulatory requirements. All right. Remember, you have your tech guys building the product, developing your MVP. However, you need to make sure that your MVP can even work in the first place, right? Remember, the products and the business, right? Now, for you to be able to accept deposits, so for you to be able to allow the public save on your platform, right? You need to get the required licenses. Now, for example, what people think is that, let's go ahead with the saving example. What people think is that, and I've seen founders make that mistake, right? There's something called like a thrift license,
Okay.
right? It's a collective.
Thrift license.
Yeah, it's a collective thrift. But then what you don't know is that you think because you want to be able to lend money to the public, you can just get that license. What you actually need, right, is an MFB license.
MFB.
Yeah, so that's a microfinance bank license.
Okay.
And you say, oh, no.
I'm
I'm not trying to compete with Zenith. I'm not trying to, my employer is still there. No. The law says that if you want to be able to accept deposits from the public, right, you should have a microfinance bank license.
Okay.
So usually, do you have the financial capability for that? If you do not, can you piggyback off an existing MFB license? We will advise you on that, right? Also, you also said that you want people to be able to borrow money from the platform, right? What licenses do you need? Of course, you need to have a money lender's license. But now, with the likes of what has been happening in like recent times, you see somebody borrows money, and then they send their pictures to WhatsApp, and they're saying, oh, this person is a thief. So the country has been able to cut down on this by adding an additional licensing, right? So with the FCCPC.
FCCPC.
Yes.
So many acronyms. What is the FCCPC?
Okay, so that's the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission.
Okay.
Basically, the commission that has to deal with you as a consumer, as a buyer, as anybody, right? Okay. Exactly. So now you have to get a license from the commission.
Okay.
In addition to your money lender's license, right? So that's one thing that you must have missed, right? Because if you go on your own as a founder, right, and then try to excuse me, try to register and try to do everything, that's one thing you must have missed. And that's where we come in to advise you. So even as much as the amount of your minimum share capital. Now your minimum share capital is the least amount of shareholding that your company should have,
Okay.
right? If you go on to register your company by yourself, right, and we're not saying you should not register your company by yourself, but if you go on, that's something else that you might miss, right? So another thing, to be able to lend money, you need to have at least 20 million minimum share capital.
Is that 20 million naira?
Well, naira, 20 million naira, because
in my account, or
that's a whole complex situation, right?
Okay,
But then we can deal with that later.
Okay.
Well, you need to have like 20 million minimum share capital.
Okay.
Exactly.
To register as a money lender.
Yes.
Okay.
So because you remember, right, your fintech is that you want people to be able to save money on your platform, and you also want them to be able to borrow money, right? So you can see we have identified 2 industry-specific financial technology stuff work there, right? So so I was saying basically, so we have the finance agreement, we have now incorporated your company for you in accordance with the law, right? And then we now go on to get the regulatory licenses that are needed. So we had mentioned the money lender's license, we had mentioned obtaining a microfinance bank license, right? We had mentioned obtaining a license from the FCCPC, right? And then again, whilst you're doing this, because it could be time consuming, also very capital intensive, you have your product still being built, right? So once you've done this, you've acquired your license, then you can now launch your MVP. Now,
MVP.
that's your minimum viable product. That's basically
Minimum viable product.
yes.
But you meant most valuable player.
No. That's yes. That's basically the first product that you let out into the public.
The very first product that's, as the acronym says, the minimum valuable product.
Exactly.
Can be out there.
Yeah, exactly.
For consumption.
Yes. And also, once you have, what we now come in is that whilst we're building your business structure, we also want to make sure that we're protecting your intellectual property, right? You're building a fantastic product. However, you don't want to run into a situation where, because you did not pay one back-end engineer, right, he locks your access to your product. You get, so we want to make sure that they sign, remember I asked you if you signed a non-circumvention agreement, right? You want to make sure that, yeah, with your employer, you want to make sure you have things like this with people that you employ. And what does this mean? This means that, oh, if you only leave my employment at this particular time, right, you basically cannot like use the knowledge that you have garnered from my business to start up yours, or even take my clients, right? You want to make sure that they have transferred their intellectual property in that product that they're building to you. Because generally, and yes, there are exceptions, the law says that the owner of an intellectual property product is the author before anything, right? So you want to make sure that they have transferred ownership of that intellectual property to you, right? So basically, we're structuring your business, and we're also structuring your ownership in that product, right? So basically, so at the beginning part, that's how we come in.
Okay, that's right. So basically, as a recap, I come to you, I say I want to launch a fintech product app, all of that company. You said we first need to get me a founders agreement from me and my co-founders to agree on, and then you go on to register my company at the CAC. That's the Corporate Affairs Commission. You said that I can do that myself. It's advisable I take on lawyers to help me do that, because there are things that they know that I'm not aware of. So once I get that sorted, I now need to get my shareholders agreement sorted with my co-founders as well. And then you mentioned getting a license from the CBN, the FCCPC, and is that for now? So those are the key requirements for setting up my.
More, your industry specific fintech,
just for,
exactly.
Just for the fintech.
Yes.
So every industry varies.
Yes, industries vary.
The health sector is different.
Yes.
Insurance is different.
Yes.
Education is different. Every industry has its own industry-related regulations.
Yes. Yes.
But for the banking and fintech industry, it's basically what you mentioned so far. Okay, that's interesting. Thanks, Favour.